Denver 8 TV. Your city, your source.
The dreaming and planning for a new domestic violence center continues to move forward in Denver, and a major step has been a $1 million contribution to the project by a Denver woman. You'll meet this special lady as she joins Denver DA Mitch Morrissey on this edition of Dialogue Denver DA. Hello, everyone. I'm Tamara Banks. Mitch, great to see you again.
Good to see you, Tamara.
It looks like you have a very special guest.
I do, and all the years of doing this show, I think that this may be the most special guest that we've had. It's Rose Andom, and Rose is a businesswoman in Denver, and we're very proud that she's part of us trying to build the Rose Andom Center.
Tell us a little bit about that center, Rose. What is it that struck your heart to be able to contribute to it?
Well, you know, for quite some time, I have been looking for a project or several projects that I could become involved in that would leave a legacy, if you will, for myself. And domestic violence is something that really touches my heart because I do have some history in my own family as well as myself. And I spoke with the mayor one day and told him of my desire to become involved in something. And he asked me what I was really interested in, and domestic violence is one of the in my top three, if you will. And he mentioned to me that the city had been very interested in developing a center where you would have all of the resources under one roof. And it just kind of took off from there.
So can you tell us a little bit about what the center will do? Is it a home, a place for women and other abused people to go to? Are there services there, do you think, in the future? Or what will it look like to you?
Well, and I'm sure Mitch can add a lot to this, but our vision is to have all of the resources under one roof that an individual that is being impacted with domestic violence can go and receive those services as opposed to running to various locations. Quite often these individuals don't have transportation, which makes it very difficult for them to, you know, go one place to see a judge, another place to seek shelter. So we're envisioning a place where they can go and receive all of the services that they would need.
Mitch, I imagine you have a vision for this as well.
It's a one-stop wraparound service. So basically what we have now in Denver is we have a team that looks at every domestic violence situation that happens, usually through the police department. So every time they respond to a domestic violence incident, the next day there's a team that looks at that. And that's a team of law enforcement, people from my office, from the city attorney's office, as well as the nonprofits that then provide service for victims of domestic violence. What we don't have is a one-stop place where a victim could even walk in off the street and say, I have this situation, I need help. So our goal is to build this center and to send the message really that in Denver there should be a pathway out of domestic violence. Rose said it exactly the way we're finding it now. There may be as many as 35 different places a victim of domestic violence has to go these days. And each time she goes, each time she has to tell her story, retell her story, has to fill out intake forms, that type of thing. So what we're trying to do is build a center, and there are others like this in the country. Rose has had the opportunity to visit a couple of them out in California. I visited the one in San Antonio with Mayor Hancock some years back. This has been a project we've been working on for a long time. But so then the victim comes to one place, and it's a welcoming place. She can bring her kids. It's a scenario that we want to make it as inviting as possible. We also want it centralized. So all those different agencies, on this end of town, we tend to have the police, my office, the city attorney's office, the courts, Denver Health is very close, right there. Those are some of the partners. So everybody can be there. We can determine what the situation is, what help we can provide, and then from there, the victim can go and get the services she needs from the different agencies.
And I imagine a victim with all those stops in so many different parts of town as it is now, they might forego one of those areas in terms of either reporting or getting assistance, and that becomes sort of a domino effect and snowball effect of being traumatized and even more.
Well, domestic violence is about control, and it's about isolation. And if you can isolate a victim, you can control a victim, then the abuse can continue and continue and continue. And our goal is to not only get these services to these victims, because we know we could save some lives, and that's why Rose's contribution is so important to this project. And she's really, it's amazing because she's done more than just contribute. She's really actually been in a couple of settings with me where reluctantly she has become a spokesperson to help us with this. Rose is a very private person, and some of the things that have impacted her really have had an impact on her life. And the fact that she's willing to do this for Denver, for victims of domestic violence, for families that have domestic violence going on, those children, that next generation, she's done more than contribute financially. She's really helped us a couple of times, and being here today, I know it's not easy for her, but I think it's really important for her to be here because it shows the city of Denver and it sends the message that we're trying to send, and that is that this community will not tolerate domestic violence. Right. And the next step in getting services for victims and getting out of this cycle of violence is this center.
Your contribution is huge, $1 million. That's, as Mitch said, that's a great amount of money, but it also comes from the heart. Do you mind sharing your story about how it's touched you personally, domestic violence?
I get a little emotional when I start talking about this, so hopefully I won't start bawling. But my mother was a victim. I was a very small child at the time, but I do recall what she went through. I recall hearing her cry in the middle of the night. We literally escaped from my father in the middle of the night. One of her brothers and brother-in-law drove down from Kansas City. We were actually in Oklahoma at the time. And we threw what we could in the car, and we got in the car, and we went to Kansas City, and that's where I grew up. I was married. This was many, many years ago. And I was the victim, primarily verbal and mental abuse, not so much physical abuse. But I think that it's every bit as painful.
Absolutely. You can't see those scars, but they're definitely there, aren't they?
So I did not stay in that situation for long. I did escape myself. And, but, I've never forgotten it.
So talk a little bit about the services that were available or not available, and what you hope how you want to bridge that gap and hope those kinds of services are available with this new center.
Well, and here I go.
That's okay. I imagine for families, that's one of the things that we forget. Even if the victim, the survivor, is the wife or the girlfriend, there's children involved often. Yeah. And so, what kind of services are available for the kids and the siblings?
Well, it's interesting because if you look at our list of partners, obviously people that are going to help as far as shelter, help as far as those situations go with children. This is an entire family. When Rose describes what she went through as a young girl, and she has the memory because this is the kind of thing you never forget when it's in your family. The fear, the fear for your parent, the kind of violence that you're exposed to, those people in the audience that have been through that, they know exactly what we're talking about. And that's why this is a memory, and it impacts the next generation. One of our best partners on this, in fact, we are getting the building from the Denver Public Schools. And part of the discussion with them is, think about how that impacts the next day you're in school. You spend a night in terror because domestic violence is going on in your house. You may be hiding in a closet in a bathroom, and the next day you're supposed to take a standardized test. How well are you going to do? How many days do kids miss because their mother was a domestic violence victim and had to go to the hospital and they didn't have a way to get to school? So a great partner is Denver Public Schools. We have partners all over the city. And the nice thing is they'll all be together. They'll be able to do what I call triage the situation, determine if even there's a pet at home.
Yeah.
Rose has a great dog, Bentley, and if that situation, he's home, trapped alone, what happens there? Well, the Dumb Friends League is one of our partners in this center. And the places that we've looked and the places where communities have stepped up and done this, it really works, and it is a vital part of the impact on domestic violence.
So you have a building set up, a location set up, you've got some of the other pieces coming together. How long do you think you'll be able to actually open those doors and start those services being made available to folks?
Well, we have some great partners in this, and Michael Bennett is a partner, Senator Bennett. As Rose mentioned, Michael Hancock, who really has spearheaded this since he became the mayor. And he's the one that set the tone, kind of the deadline of when he would like to have the doors open, and that's October of this year. That's Domestic Violence Month, and he thought that that would be very appropriate. But you know, when the plans like this, we may not make that. But that doesn't mean we're not moving forward. We have had some things come up, you know, as far as trying to get the money raised. There was a transfer of land from, you know, and I didn't have anything to do really with that, but that has kind of slowed us down, a transfer of land for the building. But we've got the building, well, we've got a good location. All of those things are coming into place, and we have now been applying for grants for from different foundations. We've had a lot of people say yes, they'd like to be part of this. That takes some time. So I know that's a long answer, but hopefully October of this year we can open the doors.
It sounds like the community has really gotten involved too, not just our political leaders and our policymakers, but a lot of the community is sort of stepping up. Is that your experience, Rose?
That's what I'm seeing, you know, and we are certainly hopeful that we will get much more involvement from the community, you know, as the word gets out, because it's going to take a lot more than my $1 million to get this facility open and ongoing. But I would like to add that, you know, I feel so passionate about this. My foundation that I'm just setting it up right now, I'm going to leave money. Every year I'm going to donate money to this facility because I feel so passionate about how important it is and the need for it to be something that will be ongoing.
I want to talk more about your passion and the foundation in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, so stay with us for more of Dialogue Denver DA. Back in a moment.
This bean can change a life. A bean can break the cycle of poverty and joblessness. These beans can offer hope. When you purchase products made by the Women's Bean Project, you help change the lives of the women who made them.
Welcome back. This is the part of the show where we talk about a legal term, and this time our legal term, or terms rather, are jury and grand jury. Now the definition of these are a petit jury is a group of people selected from the community to determine guilty or not guilty at trial. We're familiar with that. And then a grand jury is a group of 12 people from the community called by the court to serve for 1 year to inquire about whether a person committed a crime or not. So, Mitch, there really are different uses for both a jury and a grand jury. Can you talk a little bit more about what those differences are?
Well, most of the time when somebody gets a summons to come down and be a juror, they can either be coming to the city and county building, or they can come to the new Justice Center where we have the criminal courthouse. And you have to look and make sure which address that you need to go to. And usually what that means is you're being called to be a potential juror on a trial. And so you're going to hear either a civil case or you're going to hear a criminal case. You're going to spend anywhere from a couple of days, or as short as a day sometimes on some trials, to maybe a couple of weeks. Usually in the criminal setting, about as long as we go is a couple of weeks. And that's where you're a jury, where you sit, 12 other people sit, and you decide on the guilt or innocence of someone in the criminal setting. In a civil setting, you may decide who's liable and how much money and all of those. Those are civil jurors. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of the usual jury selection. And of course, you know, your decision has to be unanimous, and you end up voting, and everybody has to agree, and that's just the way that our system works. Obviously, anybody has a right to a jury trial based on the U.S. and the state constitution. Now, the grand jury is a little bit different. The decision is not guilt or innocence. The decision is there probable cause to indict somebody? You know, should they be charged? And we have certain crimes, many economic crimes that are so complex, or we may have a gang situation where there's a lot of intimidation and nobody's cooperating with us, say a murder case. So we use the grand jury to bring people in to testify that may be reluctant, or it may be very complex, and let citizens decide if we should go forward. They either indict the individual or not. And we have 2 grand juries in Denver. We pick them at the beginning of the year, usually in January, and they serve for a year. They serve every other week. They come in 1 day a week, every other week, and they hear these important cases. And last year, for instance, we solved a 1994 double homicide where 2 people were killed down in 5 Points, and a man who survived also had his throat cut. And it was the grand jury that helped us bring that case forward enough that we were able to get an indictment and bring those charges. So grand jurors, they serve a longer time. They don't have to all be there all the time. It doesn't have to be unanimous. The rules are different. And obviously what they do is secret. What a jury does in the courthouse is open to the public. Their deliberation's secret, where they go back and decide, you know, is this person guilty or not? But the rest of it is in an open courtroom where they sit. And the newest thing that they do now is they're allowed to ask questions. When I started, they couldn't. Now they write down questions and they give them to the judge at the end of every witness. And if the judge thinks that question is appropriate, then they're going to allow that question to be asked the witness. Extends the trial a little bit, and the lawyers don't always like it that much, but I think it's an improvement on the system.
Yeah, and get some clarity on some issues, I'm sure.
Right.
2 very important groups. Thanks, Mitch.
Yes.
So, Rose, let's get back to you and talking about the Domestic Violence Center. Tell us a little bit about your foundation. You started to go into that before the break. What is that about, and who benefits?
Well, to be totally honest, it's something that I am just establishing, and I haven't specified in its entirety who I might benefit through it, but I do know, and I've committed to the city, that I'm going to commit at least $125,000 per year to the center once it is up and running.
Oh, that's great.
But you know, I also see benefiting children. You know, the children, I'm very passionate about children getting a good education, being able to expand their horizons, if you will. because, you know, I grew up in an environment where I didn't see many options. And had I not been encouraged to go to college, you know, sometimes I really wonder where I would be today.
Right.
But once I went away to college and I started to see the various options that were there, you know, then it encouraged me to strive to do more than what I saw my mother do and others that were around me when I was growing up.
Rose is very modest. I've got to tell you that she described the situation she found herself in out in California, where she had gone through some of the classic things. She'd been isolated. She had given up a very good job with this husband that she had. And after she chose to leave, and now I know this story because Rose has told me this story, and she's told it to groups of people and had a big impact on that and what we're trying to do. There she was in California. She had a cousin, I believe, and cousin said, don't leave California, don't go back home, stay here, go get a job. She ends up getting a job at McDonald's, and she was teaching people at one point in her career how to do franchises, how to be an owner of a McDonald's. And Rose had the courage to say, you know, I'm good at teaching people how to do this, why don't I do it myself? And so Rose has owned a number of different McDonald's franchise, and anybody that flies in and out of DIA, if you stop at McDonald's and you spend $1 there, Rose runs those and I tell Rose sometimes I'm there early in the morning, and the only people at DIA to welcome me, besides security, of course, is the people that work at her McDonald's there. So she is very modest. She is a very well-established business person in Denver. How that helps us is when we go to a large foundation and we say, Rose has given us $1 million. She is a independent businesswoman who has done this on her own. It's kind of a challenge.
Right.
It's like you are a large foundation. We see your names on different buildings. We know what you have done for the city. Rose has stepped up here. What about you guys? And that has helped us a lot when we've gone into meetings. And obviously we fill out the applications and things, but I don't think Rose really understands the impact of her situation, what she's come through, and what she means to this project. And that's why we're so proud to have her name on this center.
Wow. What's going to go through your mind, you think, when you see your name on a building?
You know, I'm already just thrilled and somewhat overwhelmed that, you know, the mayor actually allowed it to be named the Rose Andom Center because of my donation.
Yeah.
I'm just overwhelmed.
It's appropriate. And there's all those little young people that are going to benefit from it. You mentioned your heart and passion for children. I'm sure that, you know, is going to leave quite the legacy in years to come.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Tamara, I mentioned Michael Bennett and Michael Hancock, of course. I didn't mention Cole Finnegan, and Cole Finnegan was the former city attorney under Mayor Hickenlooper.
Right.
Cole was very involved in getting us doing the process, doing the triage program that we have. And since that time, he's been committed to this center. And even though he's no longer in public service, he is part of a big law firm. He is a partner in this as well. And it helps to have that because obviously he has a lot of contacts in the city. He's helping us raise money as well. But also it's good to have a lawyer that's willing to give you some free legal services. So he's an important partner, and I didn't want to leave him out.
Absolutely. And Rose, it seems you've got a knack for bringing all these people together, from the mayor to a former city attorney to the district attorney, community members. What legacy or what message do you want to leave with us about domestic violence that will benefit all of our viewers, and maybe they'll go and have some conversations with other folks throughout the city?
First of all, I'd like to say that it's a much bigger problem than most people realize. you know, I knew that it was a big problem, but I did not realize how huge it was until I really got involved with the city in helping to develop this project. So that's the first message. It is a huge problem. There are numerous people who die every day at the hands of domestic violence.
Right.
And you know, I just hope that there are individuals and companies out there who will feel maybe 10% as passionate as I do, as we do about this, and contribute to this center and help us get it open and thriving and help those people who are going through domestic violence every day.
And if it saves one life, then it's definitely worth it. In about 20 seconds, Mitch, I'll have you give us the last word.
It does save lives, and again, we're trying to send a message with the broadest amount of community support. Rose mentioned companies. We've talked to companies. We've talked to foundations. We've had an individual say that they'd give us $100,000 once they heard Rose speak at a small meeting. So we want to send the message that Denver does not tolerate domestic violence. This is a pathway out of domestic violence, and I want to tell your viewers, I want to thank Rose Andem for her commitment to this project.
That's right.
Without her, I don't know if we've gotten it off the ground.
Rose, thank you so much for all you do. Great to have you here.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
all you've done for the community. That's all the time we have for this time around for Dialogue Denver DA. Join us next time.
Denver 8 TV. Your city, your source.